Good evening. This is CTV News for Wednesday, December 5th. I'm Patricia Vallone. Thank you for joining us. Well, police are investigating a double shooting in Hyattsville this morning that took the life of a young boy. Officials say 14-year-old Eliezer Reyes was one of two victims shot while walking along the 2200 block of Sheraton Street. Reyes and the second victim were joined by two other people who officials say are documented gang members. Detectives suspect that the shooting may be gang-related.
When we arrived, we found two victims. They were transported to a local hospital, one in serious and one in critical. Later, a 14-year-old was pronounced dead at the hospital.
And Prince George's police are asking for the public's help with this case. Anyone with information is asked to call the anonymous Crime Solvers hotline. That number is 1-866-411-TIPS. Well, dozens of Social Security advocates joined forces with labor unions today in an effort to prevent budget cuts. Employees marched outside of the Baltimore office touting the consequences of the looming fiscal cliff. Our Molly Nivola is in Baltimore with more.
Well, this is an effort taking place at more than 80 Social Security offices across the nation today. Here we have Social Security employees and other residents joining in a protest saying, stop the budget cuts. They're asking, what about the poor, the elderly, and the disabled who benefit from Medicare and Medicaid? They say that making any modifications to those structures in government should not be part of the grand bargain to reduce the deficit.
The American people pay for Social Security with those insurance contributions deducted from every paycheck. And there's currently a very large $2.7 trillion surplus in there. But notwithstanding that, this would mean that office hours would be shortened, field offices would be closed, and people would have more trouble getting the benefits they've earned.
We're here, just by grace, and we need everyone's support and everyone to fight. This is a good operation, the Social Security Administration, and we're needed in so many ways, and we help so many people.
It's not only the effect that it has on workers, but it's also, if you make those kinds of cuts in the administrative budget, it also affects the service that we deliver to the public. The Social Security did not cause the deficit. We're running a surplus, and we're solvent, according to the actuaries, for another 21 years. You can solve the budget situation without messing with Social Security.
Now, of course, the issue of jobs is a huge factor in all of this. The Social Security Administration would have to institute a hiring freeze if the cuts were to continue, thus reducing many of the benefits that the service provides. Reporting in Baltimore, I'm Molly Nivola, CTV News.
And the American Federation of Government Employees, which joined in the protest, is the largest federal employee union. Well, a group charged with overseeing fees on cable and satellite networks meets this afternoon to discuss a series of issues. The Maryland Communications Tax Reform Commission heard from experts and leaders involved with franchise fees and emerging technologies.
In some countries in Africa, there's a higher percentage of population that has a cell phone than has a toilet. Our mobile data traffic has been doubling every year since 2007 when we started to introduce smartphones, and that translates to 20,000% growth on our network.
And the commission considers the use of various taxes in order to upkeep and modernize communication systems for state and local governments. Well, students used to be able to legally drop out of high school at 15, but Maryland lawmakers recently changed that to age 18. Now legislators are trying to find alternative ways of educating those who haven't been successful in the traditional classroom. This morning, the Joint Committee on Children, Youth, and Families heard about alternative education programs.
What we really want to do is make sure kids graduate, and kids aren't going to graduate unless they're engaged in their education. So what we're doing today is looking at some programs that work and try to figure out best practices and how to keep kids in school. So some kids have behavioral issues that need to be addressed. Some people have IEPs and they've just never kind of caught up because of their learning disability. There's a lot of reasons, things going on in their lives at home. A lot of things can keep kids from being successful in school, and we're trying to find out what we need to do a lot of times that's money, and or things cost money, and we're trying to figure out how to use the state's money really wisely to make sure we're reaching the most kids that we can.
And all local education systems in Maryland have alternative programs. They may be within a school, a separate classroom, or a different school. Well, 2 unions joined ranks calling on the Department of Corrections to explain how it's complying with Maryland's new social media privacy law. In April 2011, the department revised its policy so that job applicants and current employees had to give access to their private social media communications. The American Civil Liberties Union took action after a corrections officer was required to provide his personal Facebook password during a recertification interview. Now the ACLU and AFSCME want to make sure that policy has changed because it's no longer in compliance with the new law that took effect on October 1st. Maryland was the first state in the nation to ban employers from asking for access to social media accounts of job applicants and employees. And you are watching CTV News. I'm Patricia Ballone.